Hey guys, I possibly came with a very interesting idea. Since I play lots of Blitz games during the week, from now on Mondays, I'm going to publish out the best Blitz game of mine for the past week. It could be very interesting, entertaining. Also, we can work on some novelties and I can make those kinds of videos a little bit more because I don't have to prepare in details all those stuff. And at the same time, you possibly will find those games very attractive and maybe for your opening repertoire even good in terms of learning something. For today, I just chose a game of mine, played against Russian FM. I was white in this game, and I decided to open up the game with d4. Lately, I just decided to entertain myself a little bit more and to once again get back to the move where I had my best rating, FIDE rating ever. I was almost a GM 2485 FIDE. And the biggest number of games against strong players I won with d4. Believe it or not with e4. Somehow when you play d4, you don't always have to play the best moves. You can just play lots of solid moves and it's still fine. In e4 is like more exact and strict opening. Anyways, my opponent went for knight f6 and I played knight f3. It's very interesting when you play knight f3 that you give up on all those openings where your knight can go on e2, but you're just ready to play Tory attack, London system, then some other type of, for example, Coley system. My opponent went for e6. And here I like and I enjoy probably the most in Coley against weaker guys, but since the guy was pretty high rated and pretty good player, I decided to go with c4. It's the Queen's Indian mainline. He played bishop b4. It's called Bogo Indian. And against Bogo Indian, I personally believe that the most solid continuation and this variation is just bishop to d2. It's just bishop to d2, although apart from playing bishop d2 in this variation, where I definitely, for example, Grandmaster Boris Avrikh covered it in his Grandmaster repertoire and he did a great job there. White is certainly a little bit better in most of these lines. I opted for knight bd2, which is a little bit more flexible, and that used to be Garry Kasparov's one of his favorite opening choices. I believe that black going for b6, it's certainly one of the most common blitz reactions. They just go with the bishop b7, controlling the center with e4, but somehow I don't think it's especially good thing. After they go with b6, we just go with g3. And when we play g3, bishop b7, bishop g2, castle short, castle short. This is a very important moment for this variation and for the whole game, because here the game divides into two directions. They can go with c5, breaking indirectly the center, where I intend to play d5, and intending to go with d5, I just want to sack the pawn and go with a line like this where I can play some knight h4 and doing lots of interesting attacking stuff. For the time being, I'm not interested in getting the pawn back on d5 just like that. I'm gonna take on d5, push e4 and go for the kingside action. That was my initial intention here if he'd gone for c5, but he played d5. Okay, d5 is completely different type of idea. It's one of the main moves here. When they play d5, they just want to fight for the center. For the time being, they're closing the light square bishop. I took on d5. And now I was expecting e takes d5, where I would jump on e5. You're just opening on e5. You're just pinning the bishop by your bishop on g2. I know the line knight bd7. Then you play queen a4, threatening the bishop on d6, threatening to jump on c6. And after bishop d6, I remember from one of Yusupov's games and Varatsky's books, knight dc4. Then you're harassing the dark square bishop, want to win the bishop pair. Sometimes you have knight to e3, threatening on d5, making pressure. That knight can go on f5, and so on and so on. My opponent surprisingly decided to take by knight. I definitely think that this was a mistake of the game, and simply you can't play an opening like this. I played e4, where I just built up a strong center. He brought a knight back to e7, and I just said, okay, let me just play queen c2. By bringing my queen to c2, I'm just opening the back rank for my rooks. I'm opening the d file, possibly for one of the rooks. Most likely it should be rook ad1, but it depends on circumstances. And somehow my queen can eye for h7 square in some points. He played knight d7. I was absolutely aware of the fact that he at some point wants to take on d2 and break with c5. I played a3 because I'm happy, but this is exactly the point of the difference between e4 and d4 openings. In e4, you gotta now, for example, in similar type of position, make one move that gives you like advantage. Here, I can play knight c4, knight b3, rook d1, h4, a3, and in every single line, what is just better? I played a3, he captured on d2, and I decided to recapture and connect my rooks on the back rank. Okay, my opponent went for rook c8. Obviously, he wants to go with c5, going after the queen and the x-rays against the queen on c2. I said, okay, let me just solidify myself and play solid logical moves. I got a bishop pair. I'm centralizing my rook. This move cannot be bad. And I believe if one of the main causes of the black's loss in this game was when he decided to go with knight takes d5, the following move was one of the main reasons why I actually won the game. So here I decided to sack a pawn and play d5. That's a very typical, I'd say stereotypical type of pawn sack in these type of the games. So I'm just trying to justify my rook on the d file. I'm trying to take advantage of the queen being on d8. Also of the x-rays against the light square bishop. He captured, and decided not to take. So what did I see if he takes? To be honest with you, I didn't see anything that concrete. I saw if he takes, I would just play my bishop to c3. I have these nice bishops on these two diagonals. My rook all together, you know, like with the queen is just doing a great job and doing these x-rays on the bishop, on the queen on d8. While in case of knight takes d5, I would just play a very typical knight g5, threatening mate on h7. That's why I play the move queen c2. And when he plays g6, I would play just bishop c1. I'm pinning the knight, pinning the bishop. There are like lots of problems for the queen on d8 standing there, and somehow he's got problems. My opponent decided not to take the challenge and played knight g6. I had so many, you know, like lectures and videos where I just pointed out when your opponent's knight stands on g6 and there is a king there, but even if the king is not there, you should be going with h4 and you shouldn't hesitate. Simply, you're supposed to chase the knight away. I played h4, threatening to play h5, and my opponent played h5 himself. I said, okay, not a big deal. I instantly jumped with the knight on g5. Now I have this powerful knight on g5 that in some moments threatens on h7, that in some moments threatens to take on f7. I keep eyeing and making pressure against the knight on g6. I want to do something with my bishops, either by bishop h3 pinning the knight and the rook, or by bishop c3 pointing out, you know, on the king's side and in that direction. My opponent played queen f6, which is more like move, let's just play rook f to d8 to solidify ourselves. I played bishop c3. And here, I just want to remind you of one nice strategic point. The best blocking piece in chess is queen. So having the queen as a blocking piece, it must be bad. He had a worse blocker, that's the queen on d6, and it was time for my action. I won this game in 4 moves. I played knight e6, and I threatened the pawn on g7, threatened the rook. He simply had to capture, but even if he doesn't capture, he's dead lost. Then I took on g6. Do you remember how important was that queen c2 move when I made it? I'm threatening mate in 1. He played knight f6. I took on e6. I'm threatening to take the queen, and I'm threatening to take the bishop. The guy played queen e7. Of course, he cannot take here because I'm just winning the bishop. So he took on he played queen e7. I took on b7, and the final touch was rook d7. A very nice covering of the 7th rank and forcing either checkmate with a queen g7, or if he takes by knight, queen g7 with mate. Hope that you like this new short format of my best blitz games for the past week. This was against an FM. I was white. I played Bogo Indian. Actually, my opponent played Bogo Indian, and I played Kronfeld defense with the 4th move, knight b2 against the Bogo Indian, and just presented you some nice, short, but at the same time, pretty attractive, refreshing ideas against the Bogo Indian systems. Hope that you enjoyed. And if you like it, please let me know and make some feedback so we can see if I should make these kinds of videos in the future. Thanks. See you next time.